Now I'd like to turn to my task that Marv introduced me to do and actually introduce Dr. Längle. Alfred, it's such a pleasure to have you here with us. For those of you who don't know a bit about Alfred Längle, let me introduce you to him as a person a bit. He is a father of 4 children. I think that was a good thing to say first, probably, right? He's a father of 4 children, 3 of whom are in university and 1 son who is still at home. He worked very intensively after his graduate work with Viktor Frankl. That was a period for about 10 years where they were in nearly daily contact, and they worked back and forth, and together, like I said, established a society and a training model and so forth. So he was very intimately involved. Him and a few other very key people in Vienna were intimately involved in the development of the training. And he had a key element in the training is that it moved away from simply just a focus on the philosophy, the underlying philosophy, to the focus on the person's experience. The experience of the person, of the therapist, as well as the experience of the client. So it is a much more experiential focus than simply just a cognitive or a philosophical focus. Alfred trained in 2 different disciplines in 3 different languages. He trained first in medicine and got a degree as a medical doctor and is a licensed physician, and then trained in clinical psychology and got a doctorate there in 3 different countries, in Italy and in France and then in Austria, so in 3 different languages. And this has been very helpful to him because one of the main things that Alfred is involved with now is the training in different countries all over the world. So after this time here in Vancouver, he will go on to Mexico and speak there and be able to converse in those languages, in Spanish and so forth as well. Alfred has also been involved not only just within the existential analytical community, but also more broadly, and in terms of bringing different psychotherapy schools together into dialogue with one another. He is currently the vice president of the International Federation of Psychotherapy. This is the oldest psychotherapy federation, founded by Carl Gustav Jung. And Alfred is actively involved in collaborating and working with other schools of psychotherapy, even beyond existential psychotherapy. Now, before I go on talking too much more, I think it's time now to ask Alfred to come. I've talked enough. Thank you very much for being here, Alfred. Please welcome him with me.
Thank you very much, Derek and Marv, for your lovely introduction and presentation. It was so lovely that I'm a little bit moved about what you were saying about me. So,
I'll turn it down a bit.
Okay. Thank you. I'm very happy about this invitation and to be here. It's a very honoring invitation to be with you this evening on this place in UBC and in Vancouver, and I hope we will have a good evening together and to share a little bit the wind of existential psychotherapy and of this phenomenological approach to the human being. It was at least the noise of existential philosophy. It is a little bit too high. It's still too. Maybe, when I go farther away, maybe it had.
I'm just going to unplug it. Now it should work, Alfred.
Okay. Well, things are moving very fast here in Canada. I'm not used to that American pace of life. Well, I'm coming from slow Vienna, you know, where we have time for coffee, for sitting there, for talking, and we celebrate this atmosphere, and we read the newspapers there, and this is our culture. It's a very slow culture, but by this slow pace of life, music is in the air, and some of the musicians are writing it down, and it sounds very nice. The Viennese waltz, for instance, Strauss, of course Mozart, who was not Viennese, but who spent some time coming from Salzburg to Vienna at the emperor's court, and so we have some other musicians who came to Vienna, and we integrated them, like Beethoven, who we say is Viennese. He was in fact a German, but he lived quite the most time of his life in Vienna. And so, well, I'm pleased to start with an introduction into existential analysis and existential way of thinking, and I want to not to make it too long. After this introduction of about, let's say, half an hour or 3/4 of an hour, you have the chance to discuss it a little bit if you want, and to ask or comment on it. Then we make a short break, and then we start with the practical work. Somebody who is sitting here was so nice to offer, he didn't like, but he said I would do it, and to talk about some personal situation, and I try with him to work on this personal situation by tools of existential analysis, just to show you how we work and how is the atmosphere and what is the way we proceed, and to give you a glimpse on this treatment. It's of course only a short part or a short piece of therapy. It's not a complete therapy, but you may have, I hope it will come out that you have an impression on how we work in this focus. And then, of course, we will discuss the practical session, and I would like to have your comments and impressions and thoughts and supervision also, what you would do or what you would suggest to do, and even to talk about what you understood and what is helpful. Okay. My introduction to existential analysis. When we talk about existential analysis, you may have very different impressions or associations. You will probably think about philosophy and think that or expect that we talk a lot on philosophical issues. Existence, existential philosophy is in the background of existential analysis, of course. Existential analysis is one movement, one focus in psychotherapy, which came out from the background of existential philosophy and psychiatry, practical psychiatry. Viktor Frankl combined both and developed logotherapy as a special application of existential analysis focused on meaning, and existential analysis, which is the broader horizon. For Frankl, it was the theoretical background for the practical work, which was meaning-centered. But more than this, nowadays, existential analysis is used in that broader horizon. We don't focus only on the meaning issue, but we focus on the basis of existence. But existential analysis is a psychotherapy. It is not only a theory. It needs, of course, to have a theory as a background, a theoretical explanation, and but it is not impractical as a psychotherapy. It must be applicable, and therefore it is not only cognitive. It is not rejecting emotion, but it is working with emotions and personal experience. As a psychotherapy, focused on unlocking personal experiences and to come to a deeper understanding and to come to an access of what happened in one's life, so that we can use the message, the content, the importance of what we experience, can use it, can learn from it, and can apply it in a new way, on a different level. So existential analysis is by no means speculative, and maybe it is not well enough or not so much based on empirical data as you are normally used in North America. And this is a difficulty for us or for you or for both. Because what does it mean when a psychotherapy, we have empirical data, we have investigations, but not as much as CBT, of course, has. And what does it mean when a focus, a psychotherapeutic focus, is not based so much on empirical data? It means in the first line that this focus is based on subjectivity instead of objectivity. And this is the main issue I want to convey to you this night, to show you how we can work with subjectivity, and that subjective perception, phenomenological perception, brings up reality, a special kind of reality, a reality which really concerns human beings. And this is the most important we have to do in psychotherapy, in our vision, that we come up to themes which are touching us, which are a basis for our life, which helps us to construct a future and to have a vision to live for. And psychopathology is a suffering for not having a vision, for not having an access to what we experience subjectively or have experienced subjectively, traumas, etc. And not having this access means that part of our life is lost, and no empirical data may help us to overcome it. With empirical data, we can construct techniques, methods, and we can prove what we are doing, and it is important to have empirical data for this. If the methods, the techniques are helpful or not, and in what sense they help, or in what direction they are helpful. But empirical data cannot replace personal experience, never. Personal experience is the center, is the axis of human life. And access to personal experience is, helps us understand better ourselves and others. As well as we understand ourselves, we are able to understand other people. And as well as we understand other people, we can understand ourselves. This is a reciprocal work. So existential analysis is practical. It is a psychotherapeutic access to oneself and to others. And the central term of existential analysis is existence. Existence means experience, means action, and means decision. So these are very practical issues. The goal is to integrate one's experience, one's feelings, one's thoughts, one's actions, and to come to a wholeness, to a togetherness, which we are by nature, but which can be break apart through our life experiences. Existential analysis means to reflect practically on issues like issues of daily life. Why I'm sitting here? What we are doing here is practicing existence. Existence is happening now, and not only in special situations. Existence is our everyday job. And, of course, to make it clearer what existence may mean, we have questions like, why am I sitting here? What is moving me to be here? What is interesting me? What for am I doing it? How do I really experience on a deeper level, how do I experience sitting here personally, subjectively? No empirical data may tell me that. This is a personal exposure to a life situation. What is my own perception, experience? What are my feelings when I'm sitting here? What was moving me to come here, but now I'm here? How do I experience it? What is important for me, and how do I decide from second to second, from minute to minute, to concentrate on, to follow? I'm much more responsible for my life, and I have much more possibilities than we are normally aware of in our daily life. Existential analysis makes us more conscious, or better to say, more experiential, this human capacity of freedom, of making decisions, of being responsible, of being related, which means being responsible. That this, what I'm doing, belongs to me, belongs to my existence, and therefore I am responsible for it, and it was depending from me. We don't so much define goals in existential analysis. We do it, but more important than to define goals and to achieve goals is to open ourselves to life, to what is happening around, to what is going on, to what is worthful in our life. Existence, therefore, is a continuous proof and evaluation of what I do and of what I experience. So, the question is continuously, is it worth it, what I do? And who can solve this question, this problem, if not me? And again, empirical data don't help us in this. Do I feel free in what I do? And if I do something and I don't feel free, why don't I feel free? Is it worth it to continue if I don't feel free? If I feel compelled, forced? Who am I if I do it, if I continue? It is like a duty, a challenge, a continuous offer of life to work on what we do in a way that we can really feel free, not only think that we are free. And if we don't, we are not really ourselves. We are alienated. Existential analysis, therefore, puts into the center of the scene the person. It is a method to put the truly human into the center of one's life. So, in existential analysis, we can say the world, our existence, our being here has two centers, me and otherness, and they are connected inseparably. Everything has to turn in this ellipse around these two focuses. I must be on the scene, but in connection with the other. In this continuous dialogue, in connection with the world. And both together form the subjective world. And so in existential analysis, we change some issues or phrases. For instance, so often we are asking ourselves, do I have a good life? Am I happy with my life? But this is only one focus. To come to this ellipse, we need the other focus. And then we ask ourselves, am I happy about me? Am I content with myself in my life? You see, there is a little switch, a switch over. The most responsible for happiness in life is me, on how I decide and I behave. What fate and circumstances are offering, conveying, bringing in, confronting me is one side. And there may be good life situations, bad life situations, but independently, more or less independent from this, is my personal position to it. How do I deal with it? What do I do with it? What do I bring out, improve? This is my responsibility. And so the notion is that in existential thinking is that the happiness is broadly depending from myself. And I think this is also a typical American way of thinking, that happiness depends from me and from my own activity. This is probably more American than European. So we define existential analysis as helping the people to live with inner consent, because in the inner consent to what I do is focused the decision, the own decision. Whatever I do with inner agreement, with approval, then I can say, well, I am on the scene because I say yes. I have my inner consent. Inner consent means I have a felt yes, a felt sense, a felt meaning. Is it too low now, or can you understand me? Okay. And this is so important. Wherever I have my inner consent, I engage myself. I am committed. I am present. And this is what we think is most important in one's life, to be present in this life, present enough that we can go one day when we die, because we are full, we are satisfied by our presence. And the more present we are, the easier we can go. And the less present we have been, the more difficult it is to die. And dying is a great human challenge we have to deal with, although we probably don't think about it in everyday life. But it is the fact, it is reality. So, to live with inner consent, this means we have a capacity, an innate capacity to deal with this huge complexity which is described by existential philosophy, which is described by psychology, etc. To deal with this complexity with our emotionality. Emotionality means that we have a simultaneous representation, an analogous representation of our orientation in life. Emotionality shows us if we are happy or not. Happiness is an emotion, it's not a thought. Emotionality shows us if we if we are eager to continue in what we are doing or not, if we are motivated or not. Motivation is mostly an emotional issue. But emotion is not easy to blur. Emotion shows us against our rationality what is going on with us. And if we do things by rational decisions which are against what we feel, against what is really important in our life, disturbances arise, anxiety arises, depression arises, and shows us on an emotional level that something is not correct in our life, that we should change. And therefore psychopathology is very important on an existential level. Psychopathology shows us that something is important, is lacking, or I'm doing wrong in the way if I continue. And if I continued that way, having anxiety or depression or histrionic disorder and so on, even addiction tells me this is not on line with your existential needs, with with an existential life. There are more important things you have to deal with. Therefore, you are stopped, or we are stopped by our psychopathology, which is telling us, look at the basis of your existence. Look at where you are going to. And don't only follow your rationality. Rationality is very important. Everything we have is very important, but it must be balanced. Look also to what you experience and take serious what you experience. This is a great difficulty people have, that we feel in a way what would be important or what would be the correct, but we don't admit it, because it would mean a change in life which is too hurtful, or it could mean a different appearance to other, which I fear that I have an appearance of which has not the same esteem which I want to have, and so on. We come into pressures, into compulsions. That's the word I was looking for. Compulsions, which mean that I'm losing my central capacity as a human being, as a person, my freedom. Existential analysis, we can describe it just to show you in a more difficult way, that so that you get a little bit respect of what it can be, how it can be described in a more scientific way. A phenomenological personal psychotherapy with the aim enabling a person to experience his life freely at the spiritual and emotional levels, to arrive at authentic decisions, and to come to a responsible way of dealing with himself and the world around. So I hope you know now what we are doing with this. Okay, the founder was Viktor Frankl. Just a brief words on him. He died 10 years ago on September 2nd in 1997. I think he's very famous here in North America, with, especially by his book Man's Search for Meaning. His great contribution to psychology was to bring in a philosophically founded concept of man and anthropology, which is centered around the meaning-searching process in human existence. And he was giving the basis for existential analysis, and was especially developing one section of this broad existential basis, the meaning-centered work, which he named logotherapy, and he called it therapy because he was convinced that we can work with people just by looking for the meaning of what they are suffering. And in many cases this is very helpful, but in many cases, for instance in anxiety or depression, the meaning issue is not in forehand. It is on a second or third level, and has its importance at the end of a therapy, but not at the beginning of therapy. These are the changes we did in the last decades in Vienna. Frankl, I want to say a little bit about his work, because this is, I think, is very helpful, at least for psychologists, to have heard a few words about his theory. Maybe you are familiar with, so I make it briefly. He defined existential meaning as a chance we have, a possibility we have, something which is not fixed, a possibility, the possibility or a possibility in an actual situation. Right now we have the possibility to continue with this lecture. And if this is the most valuable possibility in this hour for you and me, we continue, then it makes meaning, it has meaning, and we experience it as meaningful. The most valuable possibility in a given situation. And afterwards, in the break, there is another situation for, let's say, 5 minutes, and this may be a good opportunity to call at home for a minute or so, just to check. And so, always the best possibility we have is meaning, existential meaning. If we really commit to these offerings, chances, free spaces, then we realize the value of our existence. Realizing the value of being here succeeds in the moment. The value of my existence is in my hands in this moment. And we are living from moment to moment. And if we are living fully, taking for serious what we experience, what we feel, what we think, then we are realizing our existence. We are realizing ourselves. And we are realizing the meaning of our life, which we ignore. The meaning of our life, this is such a big question. I don't know the meaning of my life. I was not the creator of my life. I awoke in my life. And now I'm looking around and I'm wondering, what in the hell or what in the heaven is the meaning of this being here? And I have to detect it. And I can detect it by these minutes, by these everyday questions, by these everyday offerings of valuable possibilities. And if I realize them, I get the feeling, well, I am on the right way. And meaning means, is this way the correct way? Is it worthy to continue? Does it correspond to yourself? Is it authentic? And is it worthy to what it moves in the world? Because we are not only here for ourselves, we are born or thrown or put into a world, which means I'm there also for others. If I want or do not want, my being here has an impact on others, as the being there for others has an impact on me. We are related. We are related on a neurological basis with these neurons. In German, they are called Spiegelneurone, reflective neurons, which is in discussion since a couple of 5 years, maybe. They have been detected. Well, meaning is the central message of Viktor Frankl. I'd say message now because it was not only a scientific work based on philosophy, which Viktor Frankl was bringing into psychology. He was a survivor of the Holocaust, and on this background, of course, talking about meaning was really a great impact in the world. So he was a true representative of an existential life who was not broken by what happened to him, by such a difficult life situation, but who grew in this life situation, and who was openly talking and also writing about what he experienced. Meaning, of course, helps to to overcome this inner void, which Frankl called existential vacuum. Existential vacuum is a term which describes something which happens very often to youngsters, to adolescents, but also to people in the retirement or in a midlife crisis, that we are doing something, or we are there and don't know what for we are doing it, or we have nothing to do and don't know what for I'm here at all. And this ignorance of a good direction of life leads to apathy, to a lack of motivation, to an abysmal feeling of meaninglessness. Existential vacuum, nothing is there in existence. I'm here but for nothing. This is very hard to support. And Frankl was describing people who lost their meaning in concentration camp and how easily they died by infections or even suicide. So this is a very existential issue, finding meaning. And the proneness to suicide, the suicidality, is in first line an issue of meaning. People who do not have meaning are more prone to suicide themselves. And in most of the suicides, there is a vision of meaninglessness or a feeling of meaninglessness, and therefore people die by themselves. Frankl was bringing in another issue, the key issue for a meaningful life. The key for finding meaning is an attitude, a special attitude, which helps us to find a good direction. The key issue is this openness towards what is around me and even what is within me. And he was saying that we as human beings, if we consider our being person, this means our being free, then we experience ourselves continuously as being asked for decisions. Because being free means I can make decisions. And I can make decisions continuously throughout the whole day. And that means that whatever I am confronted with is, in the first line, a question to me. A question, how do you decide? What are you going to do? It depends on you, if your life has meaning or not. So we have to consider our being here, our Dasein, our existence, as a continuous being questioned for our answer on a practical level. What are you going to do with this? What you listen here, what you hear. This is a question to you. What are you going to do with it? Can you apply it? If you have a question, do you follow the question or not? And this is so important, because if we look around the world through these eyes, then the world is open. Then I'm in the midst of my world. I'm really there. And I feel as the one who is constructing, who is giving shape to my life. And life becomes interesting. It is interesting even in the adversive situations, when I have to deal with pain, with suffering, with losses, with grief, with death. What I'm going to do with it? This is my question. And existence means this, what I am doing with what is happening. And this is so wonderful that we can be even happy or not lose our happiness, our deep joy of life, our deep relation to life in very difficult life situations. That we are suffering and we are crying, but we can have a deep feeling of fundamentally, it's good that I can be here, that I can even suffer. This is probably not so easy to understand, but if you made this experience, you know exactly what I mean. If you did not make this experience, you have maybe an idea what it could mean. But that we come to that deep level of existence, to this inherent spirituality, which is also a psychological issue, through this openness and through this letting me question by life, to this experience that I am asked, to this experience that it is of importance how I decide. At least it is for me of importance. At least, or maybe it is also of importance for some other people who are with me. And maybe it is even important for my God, if I believe in God. So, on an existential level, on a philosophical level, on a psychological level, this being asked means you are important. When my partner is not asking me anymore, so I get the feeling that I'm of no longer of importance for him or for her. When people retire, one issue they have to deal with is that they are no longer asked for as before in their active life. And they feel superfluous. And therefore, being asked by life itself continuously means that I am never superfluous. I am important as a person. This gives me dignity. Viktor Frankl, these were two main issues of Viktor Frankl's work. This description of meaning, this access to that term, to this issue, to bring in the term into psychology, and not only letting it over to philosophy and religion. Meaning has a psychological part. It has a theological part and a philosophical part. These are other issues, and Frankl and me too in my work, we divided it clearly. It would be too long to talk about all this, but just to give you this existential access to meaning, it seems to me important, combined with the key to find meaning, this open attitude. I would like to say a little bit about existential analysis as the actual psychotherapy, which is not only dealing with meaning, but which has two main columns on which it is based: the structural model and the process model. The structural model means that we can describe different dimensions of existence, which are like the four dimensions of the horizon, east, west, north, and south, which describe the dimension of existence. This being in the world is one dimension, that we have to deal with the world. These are the basis of existence, to deal with the world, to deal with the fact of being alive, which is another basis we have to deal with, and to deal with the fact that I am an individual with an I am me as a person. I have to be myself throughout my whole life. I will be never another person. So to deal with this individuality also implies a lot of difficulties, but also a lot of chances to growth. And as world, life, being a person, and finally the meaning issue, which we were talking about, this growth, this direction of my life, this becoming in my life as the fourth dimension of life. These are the so-called fundamental existential motivations, and these form the structure we work with. And we have a dynamic access in our psychotherapy to work through difficulties, experiences which are not understood, to work through trauma, for instance. This is the right column, the process model. The process model works with the power of person. We have a definition of person. The person is, to define it very briefly, is that what is free within myself. That who makes decisions, who says yes or no. This is me as a person. Me, I'm also me as a body. I'm also me as psychodynamics, as personality traits and so on. But me as a person is, in its center, it is the human freedom, my will as the expression of human freedom. My will, which is a continuous decision for something, and letting behind the other possibilities, a selective decision. So this is me as a person, and this person has a lot of capacities, and we are using this, let's say, personal or spiritual capacities to work through the difficulties we have. And then on each level of existence, on each level of this four-story house of the structural level, of the structural model, we can work through difficulties which arise through this process model, which is called personal existential analysis. It was too long, the word. I put just the abbreviation PEA, personal existential analysis. Now, I prepared, it is too long, I see. I prepared something about, as an introduction for what I plan to do on the practical side. I would have liked to talk about phenomenology. I have some beautiful citations which show the difficulty we have today in psychology, in psychiatry, in psychotherapy, which led us to a crisis that we have so many techniques and methods, but we lost the human being. We lost the encounter in so many, especially psychiatric, but also psychological treatment sessions. And the investigation does not focus on it, because investigation is done on a natural, natural scientific level, and natural science may never encounter the human person, because human person is something which is free, and therefore natural science, which is looking after the repetition, after the general, after the laws, cannot grasp what is free. Because me as a free person, I appear in investigations, in statistical investigations, only as a variance, as a disturbant variance. Because I do not behave as it is expected. I do not behave always as it is the law. Of course, my body is functioning on a natural scientific level. It follows the physical laws, the chemical laws, and even my psyche with the psychological reactions is following laws. We can predict a psychological reaction, but a decision we cannot predict. We can say with a high probability this person, as far as I know him or her, will decide that way. But in another situation, this person decides differently. It is up to his or her free will. So how can we deal scientifically with this central issue of human being, with this what makes us, which gives us the fulfillment in life, which means to live within a consent with my freedom, to apply my will, to find my inner yes, my authenticity. The way psychology and medicine is working on human being does not find it. It is the only way we can have access to this human nucleus is phenomenology. Phenomenology is a tool which needs subjectivity. Phenomenology means I am open to what appears to me as a subject. Phenomena is the appearance, literally translated, phainomai in Greek. How does something appear to me is the most important. Appearance means how is it impressing me subjectively? What personal impression do I have, for instance, from what you are listening right now? It appears you interesting, maybe, or a little bit crazy or strange. This is your appearance. Appearance means I cannot say it is that way, but for me, at that moment, it is that way. It may change, and it may be different for another person. But for me, actually, it is that way. And phenomenology means working on this basis to develop a trust in what I personally perceive. Phenomenology is a science of perception. And it was the great contribution of especially Husserl and then Heidegger, Scheler, Jaspers, Merleau-Ponty, Marcel, etc., who developed this way of perceiving reality in a way that we can say nowadays phenomenology brings up real aspects of givenness through subjectivity. Subjectivity does not mean that it is purely subjective and is not of value. In the contrary, the very important things in life are subjective. Love, there is no objectivity. Why is my wife, my child, the nicest child in the world? I didn't find an objective test up to now. I am relying only on my own appearance, how it is for me. But it is my reality and I am living. I am constructing my existence around this appearance, around this perception. And it is not only a construction which I construct deliberately, arbitrarily about reality. It has to do really something with this child or with this partner and myself. And it is activating what is so important for my life and for our relationship. So, subjectivity brings in the most important existential issues. Why? Because the most important existential issues are related with my person. And with me as a free human being, this means it is so for me actually. And I will never say it will always be that way. And I will never say it is the same thing for others. No, we refrain from generalization. And we are very exact by saying what I actually experience. And say this actual experience is like a piece of the cake of the reality, not the whole cake. And we never say that we can see the whole cake. We always see pieces of this cake. This means a certain humility. It is true for me and not for you. It is true for me actually and maybe not tomorrow, because I can be changed tomorrow. I can stand on a different level of or place in my life, and I see the same thing in a different way. And it is risky. It is risky because there is no eternal truth. The eternal truth is only my perception, that I'm capable, as long as I live, to expose my own essence to what is essential for me, to what is striking me, to what is grasping me, to what is hurting me, to what is coming up to me. And this is so important, that we risk our life, because, as you know, no risk, no fun, and no risk or no commitment, and commitment is a risk, no openness, and openness is a risk, no fulfillment. So we use as a central tool in existential analysis phenomenology, based on Husserl, and we use more the Heideggerian hermeneutic phenomenology, which is based on 3 steps. We first have a look at what is there. We ask ourselves, how is it what the patient is saying and what I experience? And we put aside all information we have, all the theories we learned, all the techniques we learned. Nothing is interesting. We are sitting there as a phenomenologist or as a phenomenological psychotherapist, knowing nothing and admitting it. And when people want to have explanations of why they suffer and what happened and how do you explain me, my anxiety and so on, we say, let me first understand. I don't know. You know, but you probably don't know that you know, and therefore I'm there. So let's have an open look. Openness is so important and so difficult, and we have really to learn it. Children are very open until they go to school. And we have to relearn it and to put aside all this knowledge, which is important. No, don't misunderstand me, please. It is very important, but more important than all our theories is the person himself or herself. This person and me as a person. And this is the first issue we have to deal with. How is that what you are suffering from? That why you come to me in the psychotherapeutic session? How is that for me? What are you telling me? What do I understand personally? Not through a theory, not because it must be that way. How is it affecting me? That is so important. And to look openly towards the other and towards myself. Not even with the intention that I want to understand you. No, just what is happening? What is happening now when you are talking? When I see your face, when I listen to your voice, your presence, how is your presence affecting my presence? And what do I grasp within myself? What is reaching me? This is the first step. This openness. The second step after Heidegger is the step. I have much later some slides, but no. I wanted to make a test with you, but oh, I think it was there. No. Yeah. Here you see the first step, the reduction, what shows up. Then the second step, reduction means we reduce all our knowledge. We reduce ourselves just to what we are. We reduce all what we have to what we are. And we offer our own being, the listening eye, the participation, the participating presence, and so on. But not doing nothing, just letting happen what is there, which gives, of course, a lot of space to the client. And he's invited to explain himself. It's not a good word. To show, to make evident, to make appear what is within him. And through this openness, we even help him construct or reconstruct what happened. Then on the second level, it is the constructive level. We put together all these impressions we have. The visual impression, the auditive impression, the understanding of the singular experiences. We're putting it together to a whole image, to a wholeness. We construct the image, the vision, and we are offering it to the other and saying, well, I understand this. What do you think? Is it that? So far I could understand you. And we're offering it to the other and making the other to our supervisor, who's telling us if this is correct or not. And then on the third level, this means a continuous openness, the destruction. Is it really the like? The continuous question, well, I have my image, but I can never be sure that it is that way. So let us be open and have a new look again, and continuously be open to what you are offering me. These are the main steps in phenomenological psychotherapy, and I hope we can see it a little bit more later on in a few minutes in our work with a colleague of us who was so nice to work with me this evening. I would say this could be enough for a first introduction to give you a framework of what we are doing now on a practical level, to focus or to repeat the most central elements. This is existential analysis is a practical tool which focuses on the person, which means on what is free in ourselves, which cannot be fixed, because whatever we fix is no longer free. So it can only be encountered. Encountering means we have a contact for this minute, for this situation, and we understand what you mean, and you understand what I mean. And then we are separated again as individuals. We are always separated as individuals. We are related and we have encounters. But afterwards, we are alone again. We are ourselves. And out of this freedom, we make new decisions. And phenomenology is the tool, the appropriate tool to come close, to touch the other as a person, because it never grasps the other, it never fixes the other, it never holds the other, it just opens space to the other, invites him to come, and is decided to be there with the other. And this is moving. This is a strong tool. And phenomenology is nothing which we can apply only after so many years of training or so on. We can improve in it, we can teach it and learn it, but it is something which is very natural. It is an everyday experience. We are all phenomenological because we are persons, and as persons we have this intuition, this capacity to experience, to feel through the reality what is the message behind. If we get a compliment from somebody, we feel if it is true or not. We sense the intention behind. This is pure phenomenology. And this natural phenomenological capacity can be amplified, of course, and can be used on a really scientific level. And we know how important it is because in the side of Max Scheler, love is phenomenology. Love means that we see the essence of the other human being. And we see it through all these appearances of face and shape and gestures and voice and decisions and behavior. And we see something, we have a construction of the essence of another person. And we see essentially when we love. And this is also for Max Scheler a phenomenological capacity, which is on its height when we love. And so even other authors are saying that the phenomenological view is a view with a loving eye, which does not harm the other, but which wants to detect who you are really. I'm interested in and to encounter who you are really. So that is the essence of existential analysis. We are now working centrally with phenomenology, and I hope we can demonstrate a little bit this form of work, which is very natural in a way, but theoretically highly complicated. And I hope I was not too complicated for my introduction, and that we can show a little bit more after a short discussion and break. Thank you for listening.